Okay, welcome back. We left off with counter trade and what counter trade is. These are the types of counter trade. I explained a lot of that in the last one, the last part. But there's barter and there's compensation deals. There's counter purchases. You can read that there. And then also there's buyback agreements. Export financing usually comes from commercial banks or it comes from the company itself. Sometimes it comes from the buyers where they can get cash up front before delivering the materials, which would allow for financing. Sometimes they can get from suppliers, not very often though. Oftentimes a supplier will not, in such a risky business, lend credit. Sometimes it's government assistance, and sometimes it's channel intermediary who will finance it if they think it's not ludicrous, lucrative. Lucrative is the word I was looking at. Lucrative enough to do that. So here's your types of exporting intermediaries. Most of them are foreign distributors. Some of them are manufacturers representatives, not too often. Generally speaking, manufacturers representatives are in that same country, so they're indirect exporters. Lots of people use trading companies, which are companies that engage in importing and exporting all over the globe. That is their job. And then some people use export management companies. Those are the types of exporting intermediaries. Working with foreign intermediaries is really tough because of all kinds of different laws, especially if your foreign intermediary is in a different country, all types of different ways that they do business, all types of cultural things. But basically, a good foreign intermediary, whether it's indirect, working at the domestic firm's own country, or in the country in which they're going to export, should do most of the marketing, the physical distribution, and the customer service activities. The exporter should cultivate relationships and really be the entire marketing arm. Think about the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, promotion, and place. They should be the whole marketing arm, do all 4 P's for that company with the company's help. So the company should suggest pricing. They should suggest ways of promotion. But really, it should be handled with the foreign intermediaries. Oftentimes, though, it is not a marriage made in heaven. These are the disputes. Pricing practices are the big ones. Once you give it to a foreign intermediary, you do not control your pricing. So they can lower the price and make your product look cheap throughout the world, or they could gouge and not sell anything. After sales service, if it breaks, who's going to fix it? Return policies, if the customer doesn't want it, who's responsible for it? Having adequate inventory levels and just getting payment, that compensation agreement up front. You've got to make sure you're dealing with a reputable firm, or else they will take a letter of credit, or they will take your product and do all kinds of different things with it. The other one, another common dispute, is also the gray market, which we talked about in part 1. So now we're going to turn our attention to global sourcing. Global sourcing is sourcing either materials or sourcing raw materials or sourcing business functions or services from different countries. Usually it involves in a contractual relationship. Technical advances and communication has really driven global sourcing. Transportation, it's a lot easier to get things in and out of countries. The lowering of trade barriers has helped it. Entrepreneurship has helped it. But really, if you look at global sourcing, especially outsourcing, it's based on technological advances. The big one is customer service, lawyers, law services, financial services like running spreadsheets and preparing spreadsheets and financial analysis, human resources. All of these are outsourced in different countries because of the falling cost of international business, because of technology, and because labor is cheap elsewhere. And there is an abundance of not only unskilled level labor, but there is an abundance of skilled labor. If you look at Lenovo, which is the computer systems that we use throughout St. John Fisher College, Lenovo's biggest service center, sales center, and marketing center in the world is in Bratislava, Slovakia, because there is a lot of skilled, young, cheap labor. So we're talking about college-educated, young, aggressive, smart, ready-to-work type of labor there, and Lenovo has taken advantage of it. So their biggest sales, service, and customer service center is there because of the glut of not just unskilled labor, but also skilled labor. So regarding sourcing, one, should you do it or not? Does it make sense? Yes, it's probably cheaper, but are you going to lose customers? For instance, oftentimes, and I know for me, I left my bank because I couldn't understand their customer service reps. So, if you're going to outsource, are you going to lose customers if you do it? And then the second thing is, where in the world should you do it? Should you outsource? A lot of people outsource their customer service to India, or they cover customer service to Fiji or someplace like that. And that's fine, provided that they're skilled labor and you're still getting the customer satisfaction that you need to do, or you're going to lose customers. Business process sourcing is outsourcing business functions like customer service, IT, human resources. Now, I'm going to talk about business process outsourcing, okay? And then there's also offshoring. Offshoring is relocating an entire manufacturing or an entire business process, like the entire marketing organization or something like that. So there's a difference between outsourcing and offshoring. Offshoring is moving, mostly when you think about offshoring, you're moving manufacturing. When you're looking at outsourcing, you're looking at other business functions. Those are the difference. Contract manufacturing is not offshoring. Contract manufacturing is contracting with another company to manufacture, whereas offshoring is putting your own plant, really FDI, putting your own plant in a particular country. We do a lot of offshoring in Mexico. We do a lot of offshoring in Latin America. We don't do a lot of it in China and India. We do a lot of contract manufacturing in China and India because those borders haven't been opened up quite as much. Sorry about flicking back and forth so much, but I think that was important to do that. So the benefits of global sourcing is the lower cost. I mean, that's the only reason you would do it. Lower cost, or if you get better work. And you could get better work. I mean, for instance, you might find better financial analysts in a different part of the world. And really the ability to achieve your strategic goals. The risk in global sourcing is the loss of customers. Your cost savings aren't what you think it would be, and sometimes your cost savings are not nearly as much. And especially if you take into consideration if you lose customers, then your cost savings are basically nothing. You've got to take a look at environmental factors. You've got to take a look at, is labor being treated well? You've got to take a look at things like, what's the press going to say to you? You've got to look at the legal environment. Are they just going to reverse engineer what you've done? You've got to take a look also at the political climate. Are they going to seize your operations? You got to take a look at your competitors over there. All of these things are huge risks in global sourcing. And that leads us to corporate social responsibility. I had just mentioned, if you're going to outsource or if you're going to offshore, you've got to make sure that your labor is being treated well, because if they're not, you'll get crucified in the press. And that could damage your reputation. You could lose customers. The other thing is, a lot of people look down on offshoring because of the job loss and because of the reduction in national competitiveness. Now, You know I'm a capitalist, and you know that when you offshore, generally speaking, if you can do it to lower costs, then everybody wins in the long runs, especially consumers. But if you do it for the wrong reason, then no one wins, and then you're in trouble. So really, public policy for minimizing the harm use of global sourcing. For those of you that are taking my marketing classes, we're talking about public relations here. Global sourcing does involve creative destruction. We lose jobs, which is the destruction, but we create better products at a lower cost, which is the creation. So government should strive to keep the jobs of doing business low. They should focus on the consumer. They should focus on the target market. They should focus on what needs to be done as we work through that. So your strategies for minimizing global sourcing, go offshore for the right reasons. Just because to lower your costs is not the right reasons. But if you're going to lower your costs and then have a better product for your consumers, that is. Make sure that you're not exchanging costs for quality. Get employees on board and get the public on board. Let the public understand why you're doing it. Most people don't realize out there that offshoring, especially moving manufacturing to lower cost entities, is going to help everybody in the long run because of lower cost products. Poorly planned communication is really, really not a good thing. And also, make sure that when you're contracting with outside suppliers, they're doing the right things by the right people. More strategies: choose your suppliers carefully. Again, communication and collaboration, not only with suppliers, but with stakeholders, including the community. A lot of times the community gets upset because there's loss of jobs. People need to understand why we're doing that. And really safeguarding the interests of the stakeholders. And that's one of the key things. And then managing your supply chain globally. Global supply chain's definition is right there. And that will conclude our video lecture for chapter 13. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope things are going well. I hope you're staying healthy and you're staying safe. Until we see each other again, take care.